Dr. Kirstie Whitaker is a professor at the Alan Turing Institute, and she's going to talk to us about inclusion in open science.
Yeah, I am not a professor. That's an American-British thing. So just in case anyone from the UK is here, I am not, in fact, a professor. But thank you, Elizabeth, for the extreme vote of confidence. I'm also extraordinarily short, so I feel really intimidated by this screen. Thank you all for being here. It really means so much to see so many people. I hope that you will come and tell us afterwards if you feel that you are an expert in open science or not. The dream for me is that many of you here feel that you are not experts in open science. I would really love for you to feel that these are pathways for you to come in. The main thing, what's the trick? Oh, I fixed it. I have on all my slides, I have these blue slides, which are my take-home messages. And you'd imagine that in a 14-minute talk, I would aim for like 2 or 3. I have about 7. So this is one of them. There are many, many different dimensions of open science. So we've heard about open access publishing a little bit today. We've heard about preprints. We've heard about open data. We've heard about open source code. Greg talked a lot about all of the many, many open educational resources that are available for you to use and reuse. We're not going to have a huge discussion about community science. I just want to flag, though, that if you don't know that term, it's a more inclusive term for citizen science. It just slightly removes some of the immigration and political kind of connotations that goes with the word citizen. Community science is science that is driven by the people who benefit from the work being done the most. And what I really want to talk to you today about is the fact that I think that equity, diversity, and inclusion has to be one of our core values at all times. But my take-home from this slide that I would like you to remember is that it's okay if you do not do every single one of these things. I would just ask that you recognize that there are many different definitions to open scholarship. Then, just to sort of like take you on a journey, I also want you to be kind to yourself, to support yourself. This is an analogy that I hope is very resonates with some of the early career researchers and some of the more senior researchers here, that you should take from the buffet of open science options the things that you need right now, enjoy those, don't eat too much, and then come back for more when you're ready. So take what you need. Don't feel like you have to do everything all of the time. And just a little shout out to Christina for this lovely buffet metaphor of open science. I will tell you now what I think open science is. This is my personal definition of open science and open scholarship. And it's taken from the Mozilla Open Leadership Principles, that every open project should be understandable, it should focus on sharing, and it should design for participation and inclusion from the very beginning. So your goal as a scientist is to make sure that people understand your work, not to publish a paper with as many jargon acronyms as possible so that people go, whoa, that is a difficult to understand paper. Congratulations to you, Captain Scientist. Our goal should be to make it easy for people to understand what you did. And maybe that's the take-home message, but maybe it's also the method. Maybe it was how you went about implementing the hypothesis that you wanted to test. I would like us to have a value that our dream is to have somebody take our work. So it's rejecting entirely the concept of scooping. Because if we are taxpayer funded, we should be servicing the communities that pay for our salaries. And we should be making sure that they, and that means that all of us, can reuse all of the work. We would go so much further, so much faster, if we could reuse each other's work. And the rest of my talk is going to really focus on this goal of designing for other people to come in and have shared decision-making and ownership over your work from the very beginning. And my top tip for this is to make the implicit explicit. So I have a picture of a microphone on here. This is like one of my big jams, that if just because something works for you doesn't mean that it works for everyone. And so if you do not need to use the microphone when you're in a meeting room, when you're in a small group, this is fine. This is like a huge thing. Everyone needs the microphone here. But in smaller groups, there may be some people in that room who would be much more able to participate, and you would learn from their experience if you made it easy for them to actually hear and understand what you were saying. And this point, this more general point, is to everything that you think you know, there's so much more that you actually know. There's so much more hidden under your expert blindness. All of these things that you have forgotten took you a really long time to learn. There are lots of people out there who don't know those things. So make the implicit explicit. I have a whole talk, it's an hour long, you can go find the slides online, that tell you some tips of how you might go about making your project welcoming. One of the things is to add a README file. I've called it a readme.md here. If you use GitHub, it is a file that is automatically rendered when people visit the URL for that website. So they will automatically see the information there. That is your welcome mat. That is your place to say thank you for being here. Please come inside. If you want people to actually use and contribute to the project that you're working on, it doesn't have to be a software tool. It doesn't have to be a data set. It can be a set of guidelines for something. It can be a paper. It can be a blog post that you're working on. Your contributing guide is something that will help them go through all of the different steps to make those contributions. There are two exercises that I find really, really valuable, which are personas and pathways. This is imagining the people that you would love to come and join into your project. They're your personas. You dream up those different people, and then you think about how they will go about accessing your information. How do they hear about it? What does that landing page first look like? Where are they going to trip and fall down? How can you smooth those journeys? One of the ways in which you can make it smoother is to have a roadmap so that people can see your work in progress and where you would like to go. It makes it easier for them to see which things you need help with, so you're having transparent project management. I personally think a newsletter, something like a monthly newsletter, is a really fantastic way of staying in touch with people who are like, "Whoa, Kirstie, your project is super new and it's no use to me right now, but I'm really interested in following along because it feels like maybe one day it'll be really useful." And a newsletter is a nice way of like keeping them in touch without sort of forcing them to come back to you to find out what's going on. And then finally, I would recommend that all of your projects, all of your labs, all of your community groups have a code of conduct. And there are lots and lots of templates that you can use online, but the most important exercise for you is to stop and sit and think, what is the environment that I want people to be working in? What is the space that will allow people to thrive? This is the talk. The link to these slides is at the bottom. I forgot to say that at the bottom of all of my slides, these slides are available. They're CC BY. You can use all of them for anything that you want. So my take home for this sort of general overview is to solicit questions and then ideally never answer the same question twice. I added this clarifying text just in case you thought that that meant that the second person got like a nope and walk away. If you do not have somewhere in the documentation of your project, somewhere that on that pathway someone can find it easily, then put that answer there and then say, thank you so much for answering that question. Here's where we've answered it before. Let me know if you need to clarify it in any way. I told you that I have this slide about Git and GitHub. I think it is truly, truly the hardest barrier. And so if you consider yourself somebody who knows how to do a pull request, I ask you to aim by December to help 5 people. They can be like your mom, your dad, your cat, your brother. Probably it's more effective if it's people in your research group or people that you know that would like to work on GitHub in some way, I would love to get them to do their first pull request, because this is one of the most complicated things that we have to get around, and it is also our biggest expert blindness spot. This is one of my favorite photos that I took last year. This is Dan Gale at Neuro Academy. I spent the second week of Neuro Academy basically bouncing around all of the different groups and helping them out with their GitHub workflows. I love Dan's face on this picture because the joy of finally figuring out what on earth you're supposed to be doing with this damn tool feels amazing. And one of the ideas, and I'm crediting all of Neuro Academy because I can't remember whose idea this was. Come and see me. I will correct this slide for all of my future talks, that every hackathon should have a gong that you can ring when you complete your first pull request. This is something that you should celebrate to the rafters because it feels so good and it's so freaking hard. I wanted to spend just a minute telling you about a little anecdote about Abraham Wald. He was a mathematician from Austria. He fled to the US during World War II, and he was tasked with figuring out where the US Army should put heavy armored plating on their planes. So they were getting planes back like this, and they had the data. The red dots here show where the bullet holes are. And he was tasked to figure out, well, it's heavy, so you'll use more fuel, but we also need to keep the planes and keep the pilots safe. So where should we put this? And his answer was that you have to put the armor where the bullet holes are not. Every piece of data that's on this slide that they were receiving back in New York was from planes that were not damaged sufficiently to crash. So we have to look for whose voices are missing. Who is not in this room? Who is not in your social group? And who is not contributing to your open source project? I want to just quickly shout out a fantastic article that was written by a few friends of mine, and they really highlight the fact that there are conversations still to be had. There are problems that still exist around some aspects of open science. So I just want to I can't go through that because I'm running out of time, but I want you to go and check out that link. And I want to finish by asking the most provocative question, which is that do we really actually want collaboration? These are a bunch of ants. The sort of work that ants do is an emergent property. That's the deal with the picture. Academia currently rewards the individual. Jobs are given to individual people. Individual fellowships, individual first or last author papers. Who gets the money? Who is choosing how it is spent? I do not think that we have metrics that actually care about communities, that actually care about groups of people helping each other out. And I think so GitHub is hard, right? This is the biggest barrier that we face. This might seem like a strange slide. This is Professor Crenshaw, who sort of coined the term intersectionality. The point that I want to make with this slide is that intersectionality considers different experiences from different sets of people. It is almost always about power differentials, and it is also about structural power. You do not fight racism by getting individual people to have a black friend. Congratulations to you. That is not what intersectionality is talking about. Intersectionality is talking about the fact that there are structures of power, and I will argue that the universities in which many of us work are houses of those powers. So, holy bleep. I am standing up here at the end of the session, and I am telling you that in order to share your code and share your data, you are going to have to break down, dismantle might have been like a slightly sort of more accessible word, the patriarchy, white supremacy, and capitalism? Good freaking luck. Welcome to my world. Thank you so, so much for that. I really, really appreciate it. So I'm going back to let's just be kind. Greg already said it in his talk. I think it's a thread that most of us are thinking about. This was a project that I was very happy to help to bring together. It's the Scientists Are Human manifesto. The links are at the bottom there. You can contribute by sharing your human experience as a scientist. I won't read all of these, but I will be more understanding of scientists who are different to me by reading their stories and talking to them. I will develop a work-life balance that is kind to myself and help others do the same. I will set kind deadlines. So, recognize your privilege. Know what power you have. You have power by being here today. You are at a very expensive conference in a beautiful city. You've probably traveled from around the world to get here. Look at the people who are not here in this room. Be kind. Step up if you don't think you're doing enough. Step back if you're at the microphone an awful lot. A white woman is not the right person to be talking about intersectionality. Let's see if we can fix that for next year. Build the world that you want to see. These are my take-home messages. I am the only speaker who has gone over time, and thank you to everybody. Thank you so much. So I think because I went over time, and now we have time for questions, what I'm going to do, because I can't see very many people from this seat, I'm going to go sit down, and then everyone can ask questions of anyone on the panel. So when I sit down, I'll answer your question, but come on up and you can ask questions of anyone that's up here. So thanks again.